Big ideas in small bites. This is Byte Sized, brought to you by Accenture.
Welcome to Byte Sized, the podcast where we unpack big ideas in bite-sized conversations. Today, I'm joined by Matt Prebble, the CEO of Accenture's UK and Ireland business. In this pivotal role, he is responsible for driving the firm's growth, shaping its strategic direction, and overseeing its performance across the region. Before taking the helm, Matt led data and AI for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and worked with C-suite executives and boards of the world's leading organisations, helping them accelerate their data and AI reinvention to enhance competitiveness, grow profitability, and deliver sustainable value. I'm very excited to take the opportunity to talk to Matt today about unlocking growth in the UK through AI, a subject very close to both of our hearts. I'm keen to delve into bridging the gap between potential and performance and whether AI can transform UK productivity and our economy. Matt, it's lovely to finally get you on the podcast. Thank you very much for joining. There are no surprises that today we're going to be talking about AI. What's your overall perspective on AI, and is it a trend, is it a hype, and what do you think the value really is?
Well, thanks, Bella, and it is wonderful to be on your podcast. It's something I listen to regularly, so it's fantastic to be on myself for a change. I think we're at a really interesting time, and I'd sort of distinguish between individual productivity and actually corporate productivity. And what we're seeing at the moment is huge, exciting uptake on individual productivity. So we're seeing widespread adoption. We just run our impact study, 3x what we saw last year in terms of individual adoption. But importantly, what we're not seeing is we're not seeing that translate to corporate productivity and performance, and we're not seeing it in the GDP figures of the UK right now. And so what we have is some amazing individual productivity, things like coding, seeing massive advancement, but what we're not seeing is that translating to corporate impact for most companies at the moment.
And what do you think one of the reasons that is that we're not seeing it in the corporate side? Because it must be quite frustrating for the individuals who can really see the benefit of using AI in their day-to-day lives and then going into the workplace and not seeing the same scale and benefit.
It's super interesting. I think what we're actually seeing is you actually have to look at the work itself and how do you reinvent the work itself to make the change. So taking a bunch of use cases, then trying to apply AI to those specific use cases of existing processes isn't really delivering the value. It's a bit like the automation wave that we lived through, where you tried to automate bad existing processes that then didn't translate to widespread productivity with automation. And the same thing here is but what we do see, there's about 10% of companies in the survey that we ran, and those 10% of companies are actually getting it right and actually looking at the work itself, the processes, reinventing those, and they're starting to get value through the other end.
We talked about reinventing the process. Is there other things that they're getting stuck on, like the value, the business case, or even the workforce, like the wider operating model, when it comes to really actually seeing that tangible value of AI being delivered?
So there's some characteristics that we see amongst the winners. So as I said, it's about 1 in 10. We see companies really outperforming, and we're starting to see that really appear in the bottom line. And they've got a number of characteristics. So firstly, top of the house. They've got support. CEO and the board are fully behind it. It's not a vanity project. They're looking at the core of their business and saying, how do I reinvent? Secondly, they're really looking at the work itself. They're looking at workflows. They're looking at the processes and really challenging to how to reinvent those processes, sometimes from first principles. So thinking, how do I do that from a first principles perspective to really drive stuff forward? Thirdly, they've all really invested in foundations. So, and again, this won't be anything new, but things like data, like constantly slows down, is always underestimated. But there's more than that. There's security, there's identity, there's moving to the cloud. Once you get all those foundations in place, the clients just accelerate super fast.
You mentioned sort of GDP and the impact that AI could have on that. Where do you think the biggest growth opportunities are for the UK and why?
What's really playing out now is who can look at the application layer and where is the value in the application layer. And what that means is the countries that have the people who can best use AI and become skilled in AI and really take AI and reinvent processes will really be able to get to the value in this next wave. So if you look at it and extrapolate it out across the industries that we operate in, we could double the GDP run rate if we get this right, which is a huge productivity boon for the UK. And we've got some wonderful capability. If you look at, we've got world-class universities. We're skilled in some of the industries like financial services and life sciences, where we've got super depth. If we can apply AI into those industries and really help to reinvent them, it puts us at the forefront. But what that requires is a level of reskilling, training, application use, taking the employee to the next level to be able to deliver that change, and actually a reinvention of the work itself. So what's important right now for the UK is the capital investment to really reinvent the work, not try and do the same things that you do today for less.
From everything you're saying at the moment, it fundamentally sounds like this is not something that could be solved by one individual organisation or one individual person, but actually it's got to be a huge collaboration across both organisations, regulators, government, the technology players, the model layers, etc. How do you see that working, coming all together, and is that one of the key characteristics as well of what we're seeing in those sort of leaders that are winning when it comes to AI?
Absolutely. I think we need to come together bluntly as a nation to take advantage of the opportunity overall, and that is the government plays a very, very important role. So a good example of that, we're working along with other technology players on the government's AI Boost initiative, where we've just increased the number of people that we're seeking to impact from 7 million to 10 million, which is a reskilling agenda to say how do we reskill 10 million people across the UK, which is a huge initiative we're part of. So things like that are incredibly important. So going back to how do we actually drive the skills reinvention, government does play a role in that. But also from a sort of corporate perspective, we do need to collaborate around things like critical infrastructure, around things like AI safety, AI trust. These things will not scale unless we get the infrastructure solution right, the safety solution right, and the trust solution right across the nation. That's increasingly important.
So we talked a bit about the economic growth and opportunities there. What's the societal impact of AI? Because that again goes back to that trust and the fear, because I think there's a huge fear of the impact it will have on the workforce. And what do we think the societal impact is? And is that actually valuable, or is there also a risk around it as well?
I think there are some characteristics that you can see as being really important in the future. So the agency to be able to really have that motivation to build things, to create things, to drive things is so important. And actually, the good news is that's part of the UK DNA. We've never really had an invention challenge. If you think back to a lot of the inventions that you talked about, Industrial Revolution, they came out of the UK. We've actually had a scaling challenge and an execution challenge. So that agency creation DNA is going to continue to be really important, as is being entrepreneurial. So the companies that are really entrepreneurial are really going to succeed. I do feel that there's a boldness required in the UK right now. But everything our research tells us is that the growth opportunity is twice as big as the pure cost and productivity efficiency opportunity. And therefore, if you think about the opportunities for people, if you take a reinvention mindset and you think, how do I do things differently? How do I change processes? Then that actually creates opportunities. It creates opportunities for the companies, but importantly, it creates opportunities for people. So the way we approach this is going to be absolutely critical. And that's why we as Accenture are really leading with the reinvention narrative, because it's about actually changing and transforming how things work, not just doing the same things you do today for less.
Brilliant, you touched upon it there. So we're talking about how the sort of economy and the industry and obviously how we need to come together. But Accenture itself, how are you getting the UK and Ireland business to reinvent, to actually also deliver that value, and how are you turning up to your clients and differently?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it is a huge reinvention for our clients, but as you say, importantly, it's a reinvention for Accenture. It's a reinvention for the consulting industries. It's a reinvention for technology services. So one of the things we've got, which has been hugely successful so far, is traditionally, if you looked at a consulting engagement, you would probably spend, all the answers would be similar. It would be 8 to 12 weeks worth of work. It would be the typical chevron diagrams. You'd be talking to different stakeholders. The ambition that we've got is to deliver all of that from day zero. So we turn up to a client and we've already done that work because it's been enabled by AI. And then you come into much more of a conversation around how do I execute and test? How do I prototype and test some of those things versus doing paper-based exercises? And that's having a huge impact. In terms of investment of people, I am very pleased that we got ahead of the curve there. One of the biggest parts, over $1 billion, has been an investment in our people. So the reskilling and retraining of our people to drive that forwards. And I think being ahead of the curve has really put us in good stead in that space overall. But again, it's the way the whole things works needs to transform. So we are now working not just in people man days, but in agent days as well. And we really do look at it like that to say what can be done with the human, but what can also be done by agents. What's really important to us, though, is that the human is always in the lead. And that's an important distinction, not just human in the loop, but human in the lead, because we think that's going to be absolutely critical moving forward.
Just building on that, can you explain to the listeners the difference between, I think many would have heard of human in the loop. What do you mean by human in the lead?
So in the end, AI should be serving people, and I guess ultimately humanity, to make the world a better place. And so what we want to make sure at every stage is that the humans have the agency. So they really have the motivation, asking the questions, deciding the strategy, driving the judgment, moving things forward. Now, a lot of things will get automated, but actually that agency itself is going to be absolutely critical moving forwards. And so us being able to deliver on the promise of human ingenuity and agency and combine that with technology and really deliver a step change, it is the unlock. And that we believe in very strongly. That is our purpose in the end, is how to deliver on the promise of human ingenuity and technology.
How do you think a consultancy is actually going to change in the future?
So I love this question, Bella, and I spend a lot of time talking and thinking about it. So yeah, let me rewind a little bit and look at it from a first principles perspective. So why do people use consulting companies and technology services companies? They use those companies because they're trying to achieve something that they can't achieve themselves. And if you look at what clients need to do today, they need to absorb and make more change than they've ever done. Like, zero question about that. They need to do huge amounts of change. The second first principles piece is that you get a lot of benefit from reuse and capability and skills. So if you have teams of people combined with technology and combined with AI who have done something in some place and have managed to codify that, but not just in people's heads, they've also managed to codify it in tools and assets and AI agents, that's of such an advantage to the next client that wants to do it. And what's amazing at the moment is the speed of change where we can adopt and apply that with our client base, and that we can bring value sooner and faster and get there quicker.
Do you have any real examples of how Accenture are working with some of their clients, I guess really delivering that meaningful impact through AI?
Yeah, we do start to see some really tangible results now. So we're doing some great work for some of the large banks at the moment around that. That's getting really real traction and showing results. And it genuinely is humans working alongside agents to deliver those changes. And we're starting to see real examples with things like visas coming into the UK, things like passport verification checks, where that whole process is moving from what was months before to weeks and in some cases days in terms of things like applying for a new passport or applying externally for a new visa. That's huge impact for people overall. So I start to see that tangibly happening in government as well. Department of Worker Pensions is a great example where we're looking at vulnerable people. We've got AI embedded in the process to identify vulnerable people and answer them quickly and first, again providing a public good, which is huge. And then we've just got through a process with the Bank of England around real-time settlements where we've helped migrate them to a whole set of new systems. So that's also exciting as well.
Matt, so you've been talking about obviously how we do a bit of a mind shift from cost optimization and therefore growth opportunities for organisations. But if we look more broadly, what do you see as the opportunity for the UK as a whole?
Yeah, thanks, Bella. I think the UK has a huge opportunity. We did some research that we've just refreshed, actually, called the Generating Impact Report. And what we found when we did it initially was that the UK has the biggest opportunity of any of the G7 countries to improve productivity through AI. And we've just refreshed that report now. What we've seen is that the UK has world-class assets in technology, has super strong infrastructure, universities, and when we've done the maths, we could double the UK's long-term productivity growth rate and deliver 14 to 20% productivity gains. And the biggest upside was in industries like financial services, for which we're famous globally, life sciences, where we've got some wonderful companies like GSK and AstraZeneca doing some of the most cutting-edge research. And then actually the skills we've got in advanced manufacturing and engineering are also amazing. So I think for the UK, our challenge has never been invention, it's been execution. And so the opportunity we've got now, as the value comes more up to the application layer from the model layer, is really to lead in using AI and driving AI across industry.
What are you doing at Accenture in the UK and Ireland to embrace AI and reinvent yourself?
So we've been very focused on training and helping to embed AI in the capability of our people. We've focused very much on reskilling, not replacing people, and really trying to help elevate people's roles and enable them to add more value to clients. And our view is if we can add 10x value to clients for every engagement, then that's a win-win solution as we scale.
If we were to fast forward 5 years, what headline would you like to see, and what part would you like to have played in making that headline?
Wow. Okay. Big, big question. Look, I think, Accenture's really in the business of applying AI to real world problems to improve the world and make the world a better place. So how do we make sure that it is human first? How do we ensure that AI works for humans and humanity and actually makes the experience better for people? That's what I'd love to say, because I think it can go two ways. I think that's very real. It can go to a way where you are focused purely on efficiency and cost out, and that creates very difficult labour market conditions. But you can go to a very exciting future where we're reinventing the work itself, we're creating new opportunities, we've got a growth mindset around how things change. We've invested in reskilling people and really putting people first in that equation. And that's what I'd love the story to be. Importantly for me is creating the opportunity for the next generation. And so for the next graduates that are coming through, or the next set of young people that are coming through, that we've created more opportunity for them through AI and technology, and we've opened up a world of possibility.
Matt, thank you very much. That has been brilliant. I think we've covered quite a lot on there. So thank you for sharing that with us. And we will leave it there.
Bella, thank you. It's been incredible fun. Really appreciate it.